Hi there, my name is Don Dillard, and this is a visual companion to a previous video where I talked about how to identify moral issues and dilemmas. So I'm hoping that this might shed a little more light on what's required in identifying moral dilemmas. So, what is this case? This is a case where you have a passerby filming an arrest and police officers are making an arrest. Now, we haven't really said anything about the case. All we have is this very slim information of a passerby filming an arrest and some police officers making arrests. That's all the information we have. Now, how do you identify possible dilemmas in this kind of case? Well, it's not told to you. You can't look up the answer. This is something you have to think critically about and come up with your own answer. And the answer in this case is a dilemma. So you're creating a moral dilemma from just very slim facts of a case. So, that being said, we have a passerby filming an arrest and some police officers making an arrest. So, your first step is to identify the moral features of the case. So, ask yourself, in this case, what are some moral features? What's entailed morally by this particular case? On the one hand, the police officer might have some moral obligation to prevent harm to the public, including individuals they are arresting. And what moral values might be entailed by this? Moral values related to like preventing harm, protecting the public, and minimizing harm. Those seem to be fairly obvious moral values, although we could probably come up with much more than that. But let's just go with that very slim criteria. On the other hand, the passerby might be morally obligated to record the arrest for the sake of the person being arrested. She might even think that she has a right, as such, to film in public. So, on the other side of the equation, what moral values might be involved? You might have values related to promoting public safety and some value related to the freedom to record or recording in public or something like that. All right. So what's the next step? The next step is, again, just to pick out the moral values of the moral features we've kind of identified, which was preventing harm, protecting the public, minimizing harm, promoting public safety, and something like the freedom to record. Now, what are some possible moral issues? Now that we've looked at the case and we've identified the possible moral features and the moral values involved in the case, this is not an exhaustive list. You could come up with more. The next step is to ask yourself, what are some possible moral issues which arise out of the features and values that you've identified? Again, none of this is being explained or told to you. This isn't something you Google. This is something that you're having to come up on your own. All right. So, what are some possible moral issues? Well, just putting yourself in the shoes of the police officer, you might think that the passerby is interfering with your duty to make the arrest. And by interfering with your duty to make the arrest, the passerby is compromising your ability to prevent or minimize harm in this case. Therefore, you as a police officer might feel that morally you are justified to stop the passerby from filming. Or maybe even to just merely order her to stop. Now let's put ourselves in the shoes of the passerby. As the passerby, you might think that the police officer has overstepped her bounds of her authority, such that she's infringing on your right, as such, to record civil servants for the sake of public safety. And by ordering you to stop filming, the police officer's compromising your rights and public safety. Why? Because you're filming for the public good. Therefore, you as a passerby might feel that morally you're justified to continue filming, even though the police officer might have ordered you to stop. Okay, so now that we began by first looking at the moral features of the case and picking out the moral values, the next step was to talk about some possible moral issues which arise out of these features and values. The next step is to ask yourself, what are some possible moral dilemmas which arise out of all of this? And one such dilemma might be some conflict regarding some value we place on public safety. Both the police officer and their passerby believes that they are promoting public safety, and that seems to be a reasonable position to take. Like, it's reasonable to think that if you were the police officer or the passerby, that you're doing something good in this case, namely promoting public safety. So who should we side with? And that's what creates the dilemma. Whomever we side with, there seems to be a cost. Remember, moral dilemmas always involve some cost or sacrifice. Either we sacrifice the value we attach to the job of a police officer to promote public safety and so forth, or the value we attach to the right of individuals to record in public. You have to sacrifice one or the other value. So which value should we sacrifice? This is a hard decision precisely because there are good arguments which could be made on either side of the equation. By siding with the police officer, there's a sense in which if anything goes wrong, you're depriving yourself of the possibility of having a recording of the event which might help exonerate you from claims of wrongdoing. If you stop the passerby from recording, it's possible that you could have used that recording in court later on if something had went wrong. The recording might have exonerated you. On the other hand, if you're the passerby, if you really are interested in public safety, then there's a sense in which you don't want to cause an incident by being unsafe, which is to say, by making the police officer anxious and therefore distracting her, that might create an unsafe circumstance under which someone is harmed, either the police officer or the person being arrested, or you or someone else, right? So it's a hard decision. What do you do in this case? What's the right thing to do? And there's no easy or obvious answer, because there are arguments which could be made on both sides. And that's an important element of the dilemma. The dilemma has to be such that it can't be easily or practically solved. There must be some hard decision involved, and what makes the decision hard involves some conflict of value. All right, just to recap, we began with a very simple case of a passerby filming an arrest and some police officers making an arrest. And we made this into a moral dilemma involving the value of public safety. Okay, that's all I have for now. I hope this video was informative. And until next time, take care.